Star Citizen Alpha 4.9 has essentially been delayed, as the biggest things included have been pushed out to 4.10 coming in August. But that's not really the whole story here. The whole story is how this is a massive response to what happened in 4.8 and what it means for the game for the rest of the year. So we're going to talk about what's going on with 4.9 with this roadmap roundup. We're also going to mention 4.10 because that also has the stuff that got pushed out of 4.9. And we're going to discuss why this whole fix here might not work to do what they want to do. I think this is a great move. 100% right thing they should be doing is making sure that their deliveries match their advertising. But I don't think necessarily just attacking the symptoms here, these problems, which are really big problems, are going to be what makes this work long term. But we'll get to that. Let's start with the explanation. As mentioned during a recent Star Citizen Live, we've reassessed our bug prioritization process following the release of Alpha 4.8. As part of that effort, we've refined how we prioritize bugs, with increased involvement from senior leadership alongside our development, QA, player experience community, and other supporting teams to help ensure we're focusing on the issues that will make the most impact. I don't know what exactly this means, if this means the directors, if it means middle management, if it means this freaking CTO himself. It's a little ambiguous, but it is good that they're all getting eyes on the things that are big problems. And then they kind of confirm here that they understand what the big problems are based on what people have been saying. Based on reports from the Issue Council, Spectrum, Reddit, direct player feedback, and other sources, we have identified nearly 100 issues that significantly impact core gameplay systems and quality of life. This includes instanced hangars, ATC and ship retrieval, freight elevators, quantum travel and star routing. Oh my gosh. Inventory UI and interaction, ships being falsely marked as lost or stolen or destroyed, docking, ship and FPS AI, login flow and exploits. These are definitely problematic. Those include some of the biggest problems in the game. The hangars, ATC, quantum travel, star map, and inventory and interaction stuff, I think, are right up there, top 4, and the freight elevators. In addition, they say, we're tracking a broader list of quality of life issues frequently reported by new players. While many veteran players have learned workarounds for common problems, they shouldn't have to. As we continue working towards making Star Citizen as welcoming as possible for new players, we're also addressing many of the issues that commonly affect the first hour of gameplay. Going back to this page shows just how bad May was from a onboarding standpoint. They made a ton of money. Look at how much the money figure of May outpaces every other year ever. But when you go to the new accounts made, that difference is a lot smaller. In fact, I think it is smaller than the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Out of the last 6 years they've had a big May, this is the second worst, which shouldn't happen. They should have they just released crafting. They have more multi-crew possibilities with engineering in the game. There's more content than there ever was before. The Ironclad just came out, which was a big deal. There were freaking, I think, 4 or 5 ships released in the space of 2 weeks. This should have been one of the biggest onboarding moments for this game ever, and it did not. I think that's a large part because the new player experience is just freaking awful. It's so bad, and it's only worse when there's all of these kinds of problems going on. So that is something they need to focus on, because they're telling these new players, come play Star Citizen. This cool battle's happening. You can fight these cool enemies. You can check out these cool places, and then people go into the game and you can't even make it there because you're glitching and falling through your ship. So yeah, it's just the same kind of stuff everybody has been saying. Even the folks that want this game to continue to march forward, I think, need to acknowledge that CIG as a company clearly needs folks to keep buying ships. Therefore, they are marketing to new folks to buy ships. Therefore, those new folks are getting certain expectations, and CIG should be delivering those expectations during their updates. Hopefully this leads to it. Continuing, they say, for those who remember the state of transit in early 2025, we're applying a similar philosophy here. At one point, months of bug fixing produced only incremental improvements, so we shifted our focus to developing new debug tools for QA that could identify root causes rather than simply addressing symptoms. The result is what many would consider a far more robust transit system today. I don't find myself getting sent into the sky by trains anymore, so that's certainly good. But we're all still waiting to see the actual transport system come into the game in other places besides Grimhex. I think they're just leaving it at Grimhex right now, but we'll see. Maybe there will be some updates here soon. Freight elevators are a good example of why this matters. Despite 70 to 80 bug fixes since last summer, players still don't feel the system is as stable or reliable as it should be. Much of that work addressed individual symptoms rather than the underlying causes. This is how they've always worked. I would love if they said here, this is a change to our entire philosophy as a company, because they have always gone after symptoms. In our minds, it was because they were working so much on like the back end of the game, right? PES, the entity database, server meshing. These things required them to basically sit on a temporary version of everything. And for those reasons, they didn't try and go in and fix those underlying causes. They would fix the symptoms, because until they could get to the new systems, a good example, the transport system compared to the transit system, why break your back trying to fix the underlying fundamental problems there? But they didn't do that. They've not been able to get these new systems in, whether it be the transport system, whether it be proper working inventory UI, whether it be the new quantum travel system. All of these things are still not getting into the game. I would guess that's because of Squadron 42, as with most things tend to be. FPS radar and scanning, weapon wear and tear, whatever it might be. I think that's all being held up by Squadron 42, but because it has been held up, they can't just keep pushing it off. They need to fix these things. That's, now that I'm saying it, also slightly worrying to think that the replacements are so far off that the underlying issues need to be fixed in the old versions. But maybe I'm also reading too much into it, you know? Maybe that's not entirely what's going to happen here. That being said, the fact that they want to go after underlying issues rather than symptoms is a really good thing, because for a long time, one of the biggest things that has always worked like that was like NPCs T-posing. They would fix the symptoms that cause the NPCs to T-pose, but they could never figure out all of the reasons for why it was happening. And as a non-game dev, I'm hoping that this is them saying that they would prefer to go the other way. Because at this point, that's where we are. Star Citizen's here. Y'all need to make it playable and work. Let's continue though. So far, they say we have roughly solved 20% of the issues on our current priority list. That might be this nearly 100 issues, not sure. We don't expect to complete every fix in time for 4.9, but we're confident this is a more methodical, root cause driven approach and is the right path forward for systems of Star Citizen's scale and complexity. This is true. And nobody should expect this to be bright and sunshine from 4.9 or even 4.10. This is a shift in philosophy. If it does stick, it's going to take a little while, I think, for it to really show. If it doesn't stick, that sucks. That's all I can say to that. Naturally, an initiative like this comes with trade-offs. It requires dedicated time from several of the teams responsible for these core systems, time that would otherwise be spent developing new features or supporting additional content. As a result, we've temporarily paused work on a small number of features while we focus on improving the stability of these foundational systems. That's the painful one. That's a shot through the heart, but it's got to happen. Like, if they're going to pump the brakes, they need to pump something, and new features seem to be it. So when we go over the monthly report in a little bit here, that's going to be coming back up a lot. With that in mind, I said, we're moving Siege of Orison and all instance-related content out of Alpha 4.9 and into a new 4.10 scheduled for mid-August. So not fully another 2-month cycle, just 1 extra month of time on this. These additional 4 weeks will allow us to continue hardening the features and technology and related deliverables planned for that content. Instancing, in particular, introduces a significant number of new systems, back-end services, and gameplay mechanics that require additional validation before we're comfortable bringing them to live. Based on the recent tech preview builds, we believe more time is still needed. Good call. I think I didn't get to try out the tech preview, but I talked to 10pound42 on the stream today or on the podcast, and he was he was like, there's no way that was going to be ready. So that's the announcement. That is the big news regarding the immediate future. the other big news is talking a little bit more about the medium to long-term future here in the monthly report. But this shows us the plan for July and August, and I do dare say it means that July is probably going to be fairly quiet in terms of releases. I don't even know. They don't really delay ship releases, so they'll probably put whatever ship is planned for 4.9 still in. But this is certainly going to put a little bit of a damper on what makes it in by the end of the year, because we only have so many content drops that we can see. It doesn't matter what they change, since they will have to change it again and again in 6 months or so. It's a moving target, as every time they add new system, it breaks everything all over again. Yup. And that's why, despite all the gnashing of teeth about last year being the year of playability but not being playable, like they specifically weren't adding new features so that this kind of stuff didn't happen last year. And while they had problems last year, for sure, golly, they had problems, there was a definitive difference in the way they were adding things last year to this year. And a lot of folks might be wondering, like, how is this any different from the year of playability? Or some people misattribute it the year of stability. It's because they are still adding features. Like, this is, like, we'll talk about it here in a little bit, 4.9. But these are still technically feature additions. The Ordnance Cargo Holder, the Valacar additions, the Ship Combat UI improvements, those are kind of feature work. You'd probably call them quality of life if you wanted to. But these things are introducing somewhat new functionality in the same way that, like, the little feature drops last year did too. But they're still trying to keep things going. And as was confirmed by Niku in a response to somebody asking about this, he did say that the features that they are working on or have been talking about, Nyx and the Genesis related features, that stuff is still coming and being worked on in parallel. So they're not completely shifting back to this idea of only content drops, but they're taking the same page out of the book they did last year. They understand that the game has to play well for them to make more money on it. And I think this is, they've stretched their luck a little bit and probably burned a little bit of goodwill with this last May. And in order to make sure that November reflects as big an increase over last year as May did, they need to make sure that by November, this game is still playing pretty well, along with new features coming in. So we're not going to see the same thing we did last year. This is also clearly a change, more so in how they're handling the triage and the actual method of bug fixing. But this is the bit that's going to take more time to see. A delay is great, and reorganizing your priorities is good. But until we actually see these things start to get some fixes and more stability, I think most folks are just going to be waiting and seeing, and this is probably going to take a couple months. So we'll see where this goes. Now, here are the features that are going to be in 4.9. First is the Support the Miners mission pack. This is what I've been doing on stream lately, where we've been doing the Recco Battaglia missions. These are, they're linked to Recco, but they're pretty generic missions. These aren't really write home to mom about doing new stuff in Star Citizen. They are interesting. It's good fun if you like your time in Nyx, but I don't think it's enough to relocate your whole home from Stanton for. Combat clothing is, I think, another touch towards Starware, implementing lightly armored apparel designed to offer a more stylish look while remaining viable in combat situations. New hairstyles. Ordnance Cargo Holder, we saw this. This is what is turning missiles into actual stackable components, even though they were. Now they just look right. The Bullpup Rifle, the Ship Combat improvements, which I think are here. You can see you got, like, the normal crosshair. You get a little cancel sign for no damage, blue hashes for shield hit, a blue cross with a no sign for shield penetration, no damage, shield penetration, all kinds. And it is quite nice to get better feedback when you're like, this is one of those things that you don't ask for, but clearly a game needs. I know some people really hate hit markers. Some people genuinely hate hit markers. Depending on the type of game they're playing. But I do think that there is enough variability in this game, and there's definitely enough opportunity for you to just shoot something and it doesn't even react to you because of a glitch, that it's nice to have a visible reaction to stuff. Tell you what's going on. You got the Valakar movements. This is interesting because they've been talking about allowing Valakar to move around and like kind of move behind you, flank you. And here they talk about dynamic burrowing. So we'll see if that might be part of this. Whether it is or not, I don't know, but there are some updates coming to the Valakar that you'll have to check out in 4.9. And then the ship flyby audio. There's a certain amount of ships that have changed their audio and reintroduced their flyby sounds with all new audio assets to deliver greater immersion and improved positional feedback during flight. And you know where it came from? Y'all know where it came from. Never forget. This is the man they brought in to do it, and he's doing it. I assume he's doing it. He looked pretty dedicated to the cause. So that's 4.9. That's what we're getting this month. And there might be other things in it, some small things, some stuff for you to check out that don't make it on here. But for the most part, 4.9 seems to be focused on fixing the game. And again, it's not going to do all of that in one patch, but 4.9 is the start. It's the shift. It's the nudge, maybe you could call it, and we'll see if it really goes far. 4.10 though is where a lot more stuff comes in, and this is the mix-up of the year. The big thing that was delayed out of 4.9 is the Siege of Orison. Now in 4.10, they describe it as a new operation. Siege of Orison introduces instanced FPS gameplay where players assault Ninetales controlled platforms in coordinated team-based encounters tied to mission-driven progression. This is actually kind of wild because I covered this in another video on Space Tomato 2. It's already up. Elite Dangerous Operations were just launched this week. And these are literally instanced team-based missions where you progress through. Like, you can't, this is crazy. Could you write this? They both call them operations. They don't even call Siege of Orison an operation normally. Normally, Siege of Orison is called like a global event, but because they're changing it, now it's a different name. And the name is Operation, the same thing that Elite Dangerous is putting out to do the same thing. It's so funny. And yeah, this is literally an instance situation for 3 to 4 players, just like Siege of Orison. Some of them are ship and on foot, but some of them are just on foot, just like Siege of Orison. You get like things out of it that you can unlock to craft. It's actually wild, but I'll stop freaking out about that. That is the big thing that got delayed, and because of that, instancing is delayed because you can't run Siege of Orison without instancing in the way they want to do it. They describe this as saying implementing instancing to create closed gameplay spaces with controlled access. Access is managed through instance prerequisites, party leader ownership, and safeguards that prevent or remove ineligible players. So, kind of sucks that it was moved. But they also said here that this card with this update has been moved from Star Citizen 1.0 to Alpha 4.10. And that is probably one of the first times we've actually seen a card from 1.0 get moved into an actual patch. The most tangible 1.0 progress we've been able to feel, I think, so far, is actually getting a card moved into a real patch. This is a big deal for Star Citizen. And it's unfortunate that it got delayed, but it's good that they delayed something that was already not looking like it was going to work. So the next thing that is out of 4.10 is the mission giver Recco Battaglia. I made a video about the return of these mission givers and the long process they've used to get to them. One of the things that was still most mysterious about them, I guess, in their return was if they were going to be instanced, because before they weren't. But before, we only had 50 people in an instance, so most folks weren't going to these mission givers. Now, a lot more people playing, a lot more time to get caught up trying to get into these missions. And I think this delay kind of answered the question for us. The fact that up here they say they have delayed Siege of Orison and all instance related content out of 4.9 and into a 4.10 scheduled mid-August update. This isn't Siege of Orison related. So I'm assuming what they're saying here is the in-person representation of mission givers will be instanced. and that's probably good. It's probably very good for the performance. But it also means that this is going to be a kind of story-based edition with some actual real storyline to go through, with characters to meet, with an NPC to talk to, and have a more cinematic experience with. So I think a lot of people are going to be interested in seeing this and happy it's happening. But also a lot of folks are like, why are they adding NPCs instead of fixing the game? Like, they're fixing the NPCs, sir. So this is a good addition. I like this one, but I do wonder how much people are going to be interested in it again. If anything, it represents the fact that we'll get more mission givers overall, not just this one. Super heavy armor and super heavy weapon. We already knew plenty about this. You guys have probably seen videos on it. I won't go too deep into it. It is related to Siege of Orison, so they're delaying it. Now, it's not necessary for Siege of Orison, but considering it also had some of its own issues, like some glitches and stuff with how it was performing, it's probably better that they just delay it and use Siege of Orison as the excuse for it. We get it a month later, it performs a little bit better. It is more disappointing for sure, but if you're going to delay everything else, we get some new Wicklow ships with the Drake Clipper with special livery. Item recovery changes are coming in as well. Ship loadout improvements they're calling, updating ship and item recovery to better support custom loadouts during timed claims, optional expedite fees, freight elevator item claims, and debuting a free recovery option when losses are detected outside the player's control. We heard about this. We saw it was coming to the PTU. It's good, but it's still not item recovery tier 1. Not for stuff you put on your body, and that is key. I think this has gone on a lot longer than most people, certainly myself, thought it would, and we're still dealing with item recovery tier 0 for a lot of things, so hopefully we see something better than this in 4.11. But for now, it's just some minor movements on ship loadouts. Ninetales armor updates in Siege of Orison, and the fuel tanks and consumption rebalance. I'm not even getting into that right now, because that's its own bucket of worms, not just a jar. So that is a look into what's happening here. And I gotta say, it's good. This is certainly good for Star Citizen. It's a bummer for forward progress. It's good for stability and for giving the people who are joining this game now, who I'm sorry to say, but as one of the folks who've been here for a while, the people who are joining right now are the most important. Okay? We know what can happen with this game. We know what directions it can go, and we know how bad it can be. But people who are joining right now, they're gonna get 10 minutes of exposure to this game compared to our 10 years, and like, it's a lot easier to turn someone away from the game in that time. So I think focusing on that is key. I just don't think this is the way to do it. I think we had to go back to the letter from the chairman in 2025 to find that, where he laid it out for us. In this letter, they said, to achieve our goals, we are making a fundamental change. We are decoupling feature development from content creation and general fixes. This means new features will no longer hold up content delivery or risks destabilizing the live environment. This approach will leverage the tech preview channel, which was reserved for major new pieces of technology like the replication layer and server meshing, but will now expand to gameplay feature testing too. Except not so much, because it still hasn't happened. They continue saying, when a new feature is deemed complex or risky enough to require focused testing, we'll introduce a separate experimental PTU channel dedicated to that feature. I got one for this. What a novel approach. What a crazy idea. Testing in this isolated channel will allow us to refine and stabilize the feature without impacting content and broader development work. Only once the feature is fully greenlit will it integrate into our standard Evo PTU Live pipeline. So the example here shows, imagine the words on this too. Let's do one of these. This is 4.8. The PTU then for 4.9 comes out, right? 4.9. And in the meantime, they delay instancing out of 4.9 and say 4.9 instancing is going to go in 4.10. So what would happen is instancing would get dropped in the ePTU here. Whatever. You know what it says. 4.8 goes live right here. Or 9. Whatever. This is also supposed to be a 9. And then Evocati here is dropped in for 4.10. Now, instancing is being tested in Evocati 4.10, but this is not what is live. What we're playing is still 4.9.1. And in the meantime, there is an Evocati patch for 4.10 that is functional, and there is an ePTU patch for instancing that is also functional and testing this feature. So it gets tested for much longer than like the 2 to 4 weeks they were just trying to test instancing. This is how feature development is supposed to be going in Star Citizen. This is how they said it was going to go back at the beginning of 2025. It did not happen in 2025. I think it happened twice. I think for server meshing mainly. And it really only started happening towards the end of the year with some AI improvements, with engineering development. I think they did a crafting one of these, a transport system one of these this year. They just had one for the instancing I mentioned, but like, look at how few times they've used the tech preview channel. Like, think about the stuff that came into the game that was broken in 4.8. Stuff like ship-to-ship refueling with the NPCs, the command module on the Ironclad. Why weren't these things in the tech preview channel for 2 to 3 months? I think generally the answer is resources. They don't have the money or the people to be able to actually do this style of development that Chris said they wanted to do, because this is a letter from Chris. Chris is a very optimistic person, and I think the realities of development are that they have much more important places for the money to go than to a yet another version of this game that's running all the time, that they're spending money on running servers for, which, you know, prices have been going up over the last couple years, you know? So I think they feel a little bit of the crunch. ePTU is not being used as much. Features are not getting as stabilized before reaching Evocati PTU and live. And unfortunately, that means that we don't get as stable of a game. That's just the way it is. That's why a lot of people want Squadron to be done. But it's not. And I don't know if they're going to be able to start doing this more. They tried it with instancing. I genuinely hope they can get more of this done soon, but this is a difficult path for them to have taken, and it hasn't been working so far, and I do worry how long it's going to take for them to be able to settle into this kind of a format, if ever. So that is a look at the big delay to 4.9, why it's happening, why I think while it is a good approach to fixing the game, it is not what's going to fix the underlying problem they have right now, which is the same one that was in the video in May, and it's the same one that's laid out here. They need a parallel testing environment so that they're not putting unstable features into the live build. We'll see if they can do it, but that's where I'm at with this. Cheers.